I didn't really know how you got into writing or writing plays, or to be honest, I hadn't really been to the theatre very much at all. But before I moved to London, various people said, well, the place you've got to send your play is the Royal Court. So that's what I did, and then I submitted something and got onto a writers group. And then that was a kind of 3 year process of going through various writers groups before a play went on, in 2010. And then I was commissioned after that to write a play for Upstairs, and Dominic Cook, who was the artistic director at the time, said you can write about absolutely anything you want. Think about how you could do something maybe formally a bit interesting with the room upstairs. Don't be restricted by any kind of naturalism. So then that play was Constellations, and that went on in 2012, I think, originally. I assisted Leo Butler on the Young Writers Programme for a couple of years in a row, working with various groups. And then I did a couple of projects with Lynn in education here, where we ran some groups for 8 to 11-year-olds. First they came to the Royal Court, and there were sort of two groups of like 30 kids, and they were an hour, and I sort of did them back to back. And I said to Lynn, how should I do these groups? What should I do? And she said, don't dumb it down in any way. Do it like you would a writer's group. So I sort of said, okay, so I was going to do objectives and structure and take it really seriously. And so the first session, a large group of 8 to 11-year-olds stared at me looking pretty baffled. What the hell is this guy talking about? And then then I was just like, oh, let's just play games and kick balls around. And they really, I hope, enjoyed it. And it was kind of amazing, actually. And then we did a group where we went to a school in Peckham, where it was an even bigger class. And again, that was kind of amazing. And I think, although I can't quite remember the chronology of it, but I think I was doing those groups around the time I was writing Constellations. And of course, the amazing thing about the kids is that they have no interest in structure, really, or story, or being naturalistic, or being, any of those things. So they wrote plays about newspapers, about toothbrushes, and rather than structure, they just write, and a meteor kills everyone. And I sort of thought that was amazing. And I think there's a little bit of like 8 to 11-year-olds in Constellations, and the story just keeps going and going and going, and it's really playful. And there's sort of 3 Carol Churchill plays that sadly I never actually saw them here. I haven't seen them done, but I've probably read them more than any other plays. So there was Blue Heart, and then the play after that, Far Away, and then the play after that, A Number. And I've read those plays over and over and over again, and Constellations is hugely indebted to those 3 plays. And I've sort of seen productions of them since, never Blue Heart actually. And I think they're probably my 3 favourite plays ever. The sort of language, the form, they're just so bold. And then a show, slightly off the top of my head, but I don't know what, something prompted me. The show I saw here, the Anthony Nilsson show, The Wonderful World of Dissociate, I guess was at National Theatre of Scotland, and then came down, and I saw it downstairs here, and I thought that was amazing in terms of, again, the form and the storytelling, and it was funny as hell, and then just kind of desperately sad and moving. And yeah, that was not necessarily an influence, but I just really, really loved it. Yeah. There's a couple of vivid memories, I guess, I've got of the Royal Court. The first is not a very interesting one, but the first time I ever went upstairs to the Upstairs Theatre, as in not seeing a show, I was just kind of given a tour, and I realised there were 2 windows in there that you could just open, and the light could come in from outside. And I don't know why, but it was before I was thinking of writing Constellations, and it was a really great moment of seeing Upstairs as a room and not as a theatre, if you know what I mean. And it meant that I just thought, oh right, it's just a space, and you can do whatever you like with it. And I think there were no seating banks or anything in there, and so I just sort of stood in there for a bit, and that was quite amazing. And then the other one was I think probably when we met Sally Hawkins for Constellations, and I had thought she was amazing for a long time and was desperate to get her in the play, but we weren't quite sure if she was going to come and read or not. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it popped into my head, and I seem to remember we were late or she was late or something, and in a sort of fit of nerves I ended up running down the stairs to see if she was here, like a sort of kid at Christmas, and I was leaning over the banister, and then I saw her, and then she saw me, and it was quite awkward and a bit creepy, because then I had to introduce myself rather than coolly in the audition room going, "Hi, I'm Nick," and I at the play. She sort of saw me on the stairs, and then she came in and read a couple of bits from the play, and it was probably one of my favourite bits of hearing an actor read your play. She was kind of amazing, and I think probably one of the reasons the Royal Court has been so important for the last 60 years is that phrase. I'm not quite sure who coined it or where it came from, but the idea of the right to fail. I'm sure other people must have said this, but maybe it was a George Devine and Tony Richardson thing. Obviously, I don't really know. But the idea that actually the play, the production, the show as a whole doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be fully formed. It's not about sort of clean, smooth edges. But it is about really, really endeavouring to try something and test something out and kind of be inventive and be bold. And that sort of spirit of don't worry if it doesn't quite work, the main thing is the endeavour, I think is really, really important, yeah. Probably my wish for the next 60 years for the Royal Court is that they maintain their autonomy in terms of programming and decision making, that they're free to put on what they want, work with who they want, and do the plays they want, and nothing ever has to compromise or jeopardise that, I would say. If the Royal Court didn't exist, I wouldn't have got into theatre and got into writing and got into reading plays, probably.